This is Ryan the Lion, and we are on a Yarn Live with a very special edition today with my guest, Lisa Mead, who we've had on before. And today's a pretty important subject if you've seen the headline. If you haven't, what the subject is about leaving domestic abuse behind, and for Lisa, driving intergenerational change. Now, that's a big subject. So I'm just going to share that there's going to be some probably pretty sensitive aspects shared, concepts and things talked about from Lisa's story. So if you have any personal challenges, we're here to support, and there's a range of professional helplines that we can provide for you to do so. But as always, there's a purpose to these, and in this case, Lisa is actually embarking on writing a book about her whole story. So this is just a little bit of a taster, 30 minutes today. We're going to talk through a range of it, or Lisa's going to. I'm going to be quiet in a minute, and it'll be all Lisa. But just to give you an idea, going to take you through Lisa's story and some of the key things that ideally will help others and give people some insight and help motivate you to invest in the writing production of the book for the benefit of all of those who might need it. And of course, it might be you watching, and it might be someone you know who has been in the situation that we're about to talk about, which is domestic abuse. And then also after that, where that led to, which is where Lisa is now. And we talk about intergenerational change. Her business has donated, as of June this year, $82,000 from top line revenue to 4 charities that help with intergenerational change, so that her son doesn't follow in the footsteps of this story about to hear, and also obviously helping and supporting a whole range of other young children so that they have the benefit to not go down the same path, so that we can create better kids. Now, if I have set the scene suitably, Lisa, and you're more than welcome to correct anything, of course, then let's start with the big picture. Could you give us all a bit of an overview of a bit of an overview, and then we'll start going into some detail.
Yeah, sure. So I was quite a young mum. Didn't actually want to be a mum when I became one. So I was 21. I'd luckily had my 21st birthday. But yeah, pretty soon after that, got pregnant and had my son at 22. And at the time, I was a young mum, obviously. I was, in a difficult financial situation. So had borderline poverty from just the situation that was going on. My son was experiencing the effects of domestic abuse. So there was violence in the home, there was drugs in the home, there was a lot of stuff that I hadn't grown up with, and I wasn't educated at the time. So I had all 4 risk factors that meant to lead a child into a really difficult future. I didn't know that at the time. I researched that actually years later, before I started my business. So that was quite shocking to find that out. But I was working at an accounting firm at the time. I went back to work after 8 weeks because I had to financially. I continued to study part-time at home and became a single parent after my son was 10 weeks old. So that leads into a lot of what I did after then. I was at a Big 4 accounting firm called KPMG, and they were quite supportive of me. And yeah, it was a big journey because I had postnatal depression as well, which really affected my ability to create connections, which is actually what is really important to be able to move past trauma if you've got some going on, or if you are trying to get out of a domestic abuse situation. You really need strong positive connections in your life. And so having that depression going on made that quite difficult for me.
I can imagine it's a really interesting point that postnatal depression, something I first came across on TV, is where I got educated from, in a movie, and have not been close or near to it. But the thing that stood out in your comment was that when you're experiencing it, makes it hard to make connections. So, instantly the thought of isolation, if you're in a domestic violence situation, I know what depression's about. So I'm thinking, if you add depression, postnatal depression, the pressure of a job, going back 8 weeks after giving birth, the first time you've given birth, first time your mum, what do they do? Poo, sleep, and eat for the first, so long. So life, I just can't imagine how upside down your world would have been at that point. So what were some of the things that you went through or happened during those early stages that led to, I guess, the point where something changed, or you did something that made it change?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of stuff going on. There was a lot of stuff that led to that point. It was quite, just not a positive situation, basically. I was the one that was working. So even though it was my money was getting used for things that were not benefiting myself or my son by that point. There was violence in the home. There was people in the home that were not positive role models. My son's father was not a positive role model. And it took me quite a long time to get to the point where I knew this wasn't the situation that I wanted my son to grow up in. And it didn't take protecting myself. It took protecting my son. So I could recognize by the time I had him, and there were things going on at home that were not good. It took those situations for me to really recognize I didn't grow up like this, but also I don't want my son to grow up in this environment. This is not a good environment for him. But yeah, prior to that, I'd reached out a couple of times while I was pregnant, because it was pretty bad then as well. But the people that I reached out to were not the right people to talk to. And so each time I reached out, I shut down again internally. And I thought, oh, it's too hard to reach out again, or I'll just spend some time and, just dealing with it, because that was some of the feedback I got actually from one person was, we've all got stuff going on, just deal with it. And that was the worst thing to hear, because that basically minimized the trauma that I was experiencing, and made me think that, this is just stuff that everybody deals with, or that this is normal. And it definitely was not normal. Having somebody, make me feel like I was not good enough all the time, or, the just constant, making me really doubt myself, doubt what I was seeing, doubt whether the things that were going on were actually, bad, or that I was just overreacting. A lot of the time I was made out to be overreacting, and that I was crazy, and that I would never find anybody as good as this person, or a lot of stuff, I think for me, like, the psychological stuff was the worst. Like, I dealt with some physical violence. I dealt with the financial side of things, where my money was being taken for things. I dealt with all of the things in the domestic abuse control wheel, if you've seen that.
Let me pop it up there for everyone.
Yeah. I think for me, the psychological stuff was the worst, making me doubt myself, because I'm quite a logical person. And that was really tricky for me to work through that. So if people haven't seen this control wheel before, it's really helpful. And I didn't actually know of it until after I'd got out of that situation. But to read all of the different types of domestic abuse, and kind of go round that control wheel and figure out I'd actually experienced every single one of those in that relationship, that was really eye-opening for me.
Yeah, and as you've been speaking through before I got this up, I picked up points having read it last night, and one of those things I just want to come back to, and we spoke about it before we got online, was the fact that you had approached some people, a couple of people, and didn't get any support. And I think that's a really big message for every person, woman and men, who might be in a situation of some form of abuse, is that you're reaching out is hard in itself, but then when you get knocked back, basically, not even just once but twice, you can, that can be sort of, I was going to say the end, but it's, it can be very damaging in terms of your ability to help yourself or to seek help again. So maybe just share a little bit more about some of those experiences and the then positive one where you were accepted and did get the help.
Yeah. So the first time I reached out was actually to my brother, and we have a really good relationship. But the problem was when he came to my house, he came with another person. So then I instinctively wanted to protect my abuser. So I thought, no, this is not the situation. This is not, what I want to happen. I just want to protect this person now because, two people against one that didn't, kind of fit for me. If my brother had come alone, I think that it would have been um, okay, I guess, in my eyes. But because there was two people, I just immediately shut down and said no. So even though he was prepared to come over and speak to my partner at the time, he'd come with somebody else, and so that was quite threatening. Um, so I immediately shut down and said, no, we can't do that. I also had police turn up at my house um, from my neighbours coming over because I'd been screaming because of something that was going on. It's all in the book, but yeah, just having police come over, flashing lights. I had two of them approach me. They didn't get me to leave the house. So I had obviously my partner just around the corner, threatening me, saying, "Go out there and say it's fine." And I think that this is really common. And of course, I couldn't say I need help when you've got somebody within earshot. So I had to say that it was fine, which I really didn't like doing because I don't, I'm an honest person, and so that was the sort of stuff that really started to make me, feel really uncomfortable about what was going on. If I had to lie about what was happening, if I had to, turn people away when they were trying to help me. And then I had another person who told me, just get over it. And eventually it got to the point where I don't actually remember having a phone call or texting anybody, but I remember getting on the phone with my friend. I think she may have rung me when I was actually just ready to give up because it was too hard. And that was after I'd had my son. It was after I'd actually asked my partner to leave my house. So you'd think that, by that stage you'd be in a better place. But actually for me, that postnatal depression was a really difficult space to be in, and not having support networks. I didn't leave the house. I went to work, obviously, but I'm quite a logical person, as I said, so I can cover up things. And I think that's part of a Kiwi thing to just get on with it and just deal with it. And I think it should be more normalized just to reach out and have a conversation with someone and be vulnerable, even though it's hard, because that's where you can create a space for healing and, actually take the steps to move forward and reach out. People really do care and they want to help you, but you have to be in the place where you're actually ready to move on, where you're ready to heal, where you're ready to be helped. And a lot of the times before then, I wasn't really ready, but I was ready in that moment. And luckily, my friend talked me through it, and she said, do you really want somebody else looking after your son? And that was it for me. That was the moment where I thought that's it. I can't keep living like this. I need to really put some effort in, to focus on myself and not this other person, because all of my energy, all of my thoughts, were towards this other person, where I actually needed to focus on myself at that point and build myself up, build my confidence again, believe in myself, and funnily enough, learn to love myself, because that had completely gone out of the window.
Yeah. So we've just heard, for those that have just tuned in, there's been a comment that's popped up, which we've just had Lisa speaking about. So one of the questions was, how about calling the cops? So I just want to go back and paraphrase a couple of things that you shared for people. So one was, Lisa called a person. It was a brother, and no one probably knew any different, but he brought another person around. So rather than having a private one-on-one, having the other person there made Lisa shut down and decide not to bring it out, and also an element of protection of the person who is the problem, by not outing or narking on the boyfriend. The second one, answering your question, Abhishek, is calling the police. And yeah, it's quite a, if you've ever, I've been involved in having the police up to situations, and it becomes very full on with the flashing lights, as you said. That in itself can be quite daunting, and you suddenly feel like you're in a movie, with the flashing lights and everything, and it's all. I think you go into a bit of shock. But of course, the key thing you said is they didn't take you away from the situation, and your boyfriend was just around the corner, as you see in a classic movie scene, just around the corner saying, "Tell them it's fine."
Yeah.
They'll go away. So you've got one on one side, the police that can't hear what he's doing, but you're under that pressure. So, of course, you would naturally bow to that pressure, because that's the problem you're trying to get away from. That's the example of the abuse. So yeah, these situations are not. I was just going to say the word, they're not linear. It's not a straight line. It's very
I would
squiggly.
say,
So there's all these things that.
yeah, I would say that these situations are not clear cut. And one of the biggest issues is actually when people are living in a domestic abuse situation, they're not thinking straight. I didn't think straight. I am smart. I'm an accountant. That none of that matters. When you're in that situation, you can't think about things logically, because the whole time you're just minimizing everything to just cope, because it's a survival thing. You're in survival mode. You're just coping, and there's no way I would have called the police. There's no way. And I think probably a lot of people wouldn't call the police either, because that brings stuff to your home, and that can inflame the situation. If a partner is abusive, violent, angry, any of those sorts of things, then you're going to be afraid to do any of those things, to reach out. So the safest option is to just reach out to a friend, family, whānau member, somebody that you trust, who is just going to sit there and give the space for you to talk. Because I think statistically it takes 6 or 7 times for most people to leave a situation like that. So 6 or 7 times of actually reaching out before they can actually get the strength to move and get out of that. There's I think over 100,000 police call outs to family violence incidents per year in New Zealand. And I think it's 76% of family violence incidents are not even reported to police. So if you think about that number, maybe it's more like 400,000, 500,000. I actually probably think it's about 1 million, because police don't have the time or the resources to even attend most of these incidents. So even though police, that would be a nice idea if they could just come and dissolve or resolve the situation and sort that out. For the person that's in it, it's not the best or ideal situation. Unfortunately, the police are not, I guess, considered the one to call when you're in that. You need somebody that you trust.
Now, I think when people go on a what is it, St. John's Mental Health First Aid course. I haven't done it. I think they will get quite a picture. I haven't, but through discussions with people like yourself, and interestingly, the TV show again, SVU, Special Victims, and they highlight in their story quite often the difference between how normal police would handle it to how the special unit handles it, and it's quite some of the things. It's just a matter of you don't know what you don't know, and it really is some of the things. So I guess what I'll stress here is that seeking professional help is really important, and if you are a support person and you're not sure, then you need to, I'd advise you to seek professional help as well. I myself would seek the help of a professional if someone came to me, and I'd obviously take the what would seem like normal steps, but I'm aware now that even sometimes what I might think are normal helpful steps, like your brother bringing a friend, I'll bring a mate just in case, or bring, the thing that you might find normal are not. So I think the key first, simplest thing is just one-on-one listen, and then from there, maybe look to get professional help involved. Would that be a good way to approach it if you have not had any mental first aid coaching or anything like that? What would you say?
Definitely. If you're approached and someone wants to talk to you about a situation that they're in, you've got to just take that as you are just the safe space for them at that point in time. And they might not even be ready to get out of that situation. They just want to talk about it. And for me, I didn't talk about it because talking about it made it real. And, for me, if I was to reach out and talk about it with somebody, then I was able to recognize this is a situation that is not okay, because domestic abuse, domestic violence is never okay. And to be able to talk to somebody about that meant that I was actually okay with recognizing that I was in a vulnerable situation. I was in a situation that was needed to stop, but I was also not ready to get out of that straight away. And so I did talk to people about really little things, little parts of it, but they've since told me that I didn't tell them any of the real stuff, of the stuff that was actually really going on, that was considered, I guess, threatening to my life as well. But people are not always ready to leave straight away. So just to be able to understand that they might just be reaching out just to talk to you. That's it. Just a conversation, just to be a safe space, just to have an ear. That's all they want for a start. And if they're ready to leave, I mean, it's very different now to when it was 11 years ago when I was in it, because, Facebook had only just started. We've got so many resources now. You can Google anything and see a whole lot of resources, heaps of phone numbers that you can ring for help. The police will refer you if you give them a ring as well. So just the local police station. You can ring the Women's Refuge. You can ring Shine NZ has a number. You can Google these places. I didn't really have those resources when I was in that, so I think it's a different environment now, and so there's heaps of resources out there. But I think just reaching out and being able to know that you are not alone in this is really important, because I felt really alone. I felt like I was the only one dealing with that situation, and maybe everybody had stuff to cope with and deal with, but I didn't feel like I could see anybody else dealing with that or getting out of it. And so that's a lot of what my book is about, is to show people that I'm somebody that got out of that, and it was bad. I'm not going to lie. But there is a much better outcome outside of that if you're willing to do the work and get out of it. Because it's not easy. I was depressed. I was struggling, but I can tell you that my life is in a totally different space to what it was, 10 years ago. and
Absolutely.
I'm so much better for it, and now I'm able to help other people, which is epic.
Yeah. And just to sort of reiterate or paraphrase, and I was going to put a few words of my own in there, is that when you're in this situation, you mentioned earlier, you're not thinking straight, I guess you'd say, as a reference. You're not thinking, and even saying it that way, not thinking normally, not thinking straight. It's probably not the most positive way to put it, but you see your reality in a different way to how other people would. You
Yeah,
see your
definitely.
reality in a different way to how you would if you were on the outside. You talk about minimizing it, etc., making excuses for the situation, trying to all these things that have got much better real terminology that a professional can share with a person, but it explains. And what I think the key thing is that while you're being isolated by the person, you also isolate yourself. You as in
Yeah,
any person in the
100%.
situation, you also isolate yourself because it's a form of survival and a form of protection from the shame. You know, when I think of my bullying, very different situation, but the shame of it. So I didn't want to go for help to get something I was ashamed about. Why can't I
Exactly.
help myself? Why do I need help for this? This is quite simple. This is nothing. But in fact,
Yeah.
it was actually quite terrifying because you go over some point where what you would, if you weren't in the, I guess, in a traumatized mindset, you would normally not accept, you just accept. So it's,
Yeah.
probably made
Yeah. And
that
I
point
think
made sense
that's,
to me.
yeah, a lot of why I didn't get out of it sooner was because of that shame or that whakama. It's worrying about how people would see me or treat me when I was out of it, because there's a lot of stigmas around single parents. There's a lot of stigmas around young mums. All of that sort of stuff. I was mentally going, I don't want to deal with that. Like, that looks too hard. But
Yeah.
in reality, what I was dealing with at home was much harder, much more difficult, because it was a process of actually losing myself. And, I got to the point where I literally felt like a shell of myself. I didn't feel anything inside. I felt nothing. And I think when you lose yourself because of things that are going on in your environment, nothing changes if nothing changes. And if you want that to change, or if you want to feel better, if you want to feel happiness or joy, you have to change your environment. You have to change something. And yeah, that's, at the end of the day, it's a process, it's a daily thing. And when you've had trauma or you're in trauma, it's a long-term change. You can't just get help for a month or 2 months or 3 months. This is like a 12 months significant amount of work to
Consistent
get
effort, yeah.
through that. It can be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. I actually, for me, it feels like a lifelong thing to constantly grow and constantly break some of those things that really held me down for a long time.
Yeah. And look at you now. So it might be a little bit of an over positive statement, but I think it's a good time to now flip into where the journey has got you to now,
Yeah.
and a little bit more about the book and the plans for the book. So
Mm-hmm.
you run your own business. You're
Mm-hmm.
former Big Four, KPMG. You've pushed so I want to caveat that. I was going to say you push through and you got there, but then I was like, well, no, I don't want to say push through because that's like the harden up advice. But what I was meaning is that you have worked your way through it. You've climbed every stair one at a time, and you've got and you keep going. And
Mm-hmm.
what you've achieved is hands down amazing. And on that note, like we were talking about before, I wanted to be cautious. I didn't make it because I'd love to just heap praise on you, and I think that's fairly earned. But I also don't want people who are still, who might be watching this, who are in a situation, to
Yeah.
think, "Oh, that'll never be me." It's
Yeah.
too out there, right? Too,
Mm-hmm.
too far away from where I am at the moment. But that said, I think the message is that the positive message is that regardless of what you end up doing with your life, you can do something that you choose. And I think the way I'll finish it off is to use that phrase you've talked about, it in the sense of you find yourself again. So tell us a bit about, I guess, the finding yourself, the decision to start social currency and work on intergenerational change, and I guess the positive flip side of this picture.
Yeah. So I guess for me it was one day at a time, and at the very beginning it was actually 1 hour at a time, because that's all I could mentally cope with, just focusing on getting that hour done and move on to the next one. And then it was a day at a time, and then it was a few days at a time, a week at a time, until I didn't have to think about that. So yeah, just worked, studied, did my degree. So it took me quite a long time, because I was studying part-time through Open Polytech at nights at home. But yeah, in 2017, at the end of 2017, I decided, my son needs more time with me. His father was absent, had been absent for most of his life. And I was, working most of the time, spending only a couple of hours a day with him. And I decided, in 2018 to start my own business. So now I run my own accounting firm. And I decided to support at-risk kids through what I do. So 10% of top line revenue, 10 cents in every dollar I donate to supporting at-risk kids through providing mentors and positive role models. And that's to specifically change intergenerational statistics around crime, poverty, and low educational attainment in at-risk rangitahi. So really specific reason for starting my business, because I had all of those risk factors. My son had all of those risk factors. I totally get it. And I wanted to be able to do something, because I was in the position to help other kids, because I saw it. My son was going through it. He still is. So my story is not officially over or perfect or done, or my situation is still evolving. And maybe it's another book, but right now where I'm at is being able to write about my story, write about how far I've come, I guess, and show that other people can totally get out of those situations as well. And that's basically, it's the book that I needed when I was in that situation. So
Beautiful.
editing it at the moment, which is fun.
Are you actually editing it at the moment?
Yeah.
I wasn't
So
sure if it was started or where it was at. But I just wanted to come back to that. Can I just come back to that beautiful sentence you said? It was the book that I needed.
Yes.
Writing the book that I needed. And I think that's that says it all. So for other people out there, that's the point of what we're doing today, is to share about the fact that there is a book coming. You've heard aspects of Lisa's story here now today, and the magic is this is the book that she needed back then. So the purpose is that this book will be able to help other people who are in that situation and help them find their way. That's just such an important message, I think. Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, no, that's okay. So yeah, it's we're 4 chapters into editing, so
cool.
it's already quite an intense story, I guess. Chapter 3 hits some domestic violence, so it's going to be probably a difficult read for some people, but for the people that can engage with it, can or do feel like they need some hope, then this will definitely do that. So just doing a Kickstarter at the moment so that we can raise enough money to get it out there and to get hopefully 1,000 or more copies into the hands of people that do need it, and at no cost. So that's the goal.
Cool. I've donated, and I chose the signed copy because I want to read it, and thought rather than anyone can do, there's a range of options, right? But I thought rather than me getting 5 or 6 books that I give out, is I'll give the money so you can give out the books. So I chose to put in $250 into that one rather than, I think it was the $50 option, but I upped it so that you could use that money to put books in the hands of other people through ways that I imagine you're working with a range of groups. So everybody out there, if you have been in this situation for no reason at all, actually, if you would care to chip in a Kickstarter, we'll put the link in the message. In the chats, and but if you do know someone, or you are that someone, then obviously the first thing we've talked about is reaching out for some sort of help with a friend. Maybe even tell them. I even said to a friend a long time ago, and you now use it all the time. If you want to talk about the problem, or if you just want to catch up about the rugby and talk shit, if you just want to hang out, just if you say to me, I just want to talk rugby, I know to stay away from even asking how you doing, and just let the casual conversation go. Or if you want to talk. But hopefully, if you're the person out there, seek professional help, seek the help of friends, family. If you don't get the right person, like Lisa's example, then make sure you keep going. So if we were to wrap up, what would your final summation words to everyone be about the journey and the book?
I would just say keep going. If you're in it, if you see somebody in it, just a conversation. That's all that needs to happen to kind of get some progress and be a safe space for someone. If you need help, there are so many resources. I'm also able to be contacted. I'm open to that. So I think key message is just reach out and talk to someone, even if you're not ready to move or change or do anything. Sitting down and having a coffee with someone is powerful, and even if they're not in the same city as you, just have a chat, just talk to someone.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm going to say thank you very much. I've got nothing to add because this is such an important subject that I know nothing about, and you know everything about. So I just want to say thank you for your time and ability to share this story. And one thing I will say to everyone is, when we put the Kickstarter in there, please help out with the coffee or more, whatever you can. The support obviously is there to help the 1,000 people who will receive these books. Ideally, the books will help every single one in some way, and obviously can be passed on and shared from person to person. But you've had a taste of the story, and you understand what the problem is and some of the nuances or intricacies. So thank you very much for your help. And lastly, Lisa, thank you once again for telling your story. So many people won't, can't. So you're helping break the stigma, you're helping shine a light, and you're helping people that have got no idea about this problem get a really good personal idea. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for letting me share this morning. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the amazing people that are actually on the front line helping people who are in these situations as well, because you do amazing work. It's a lot harder to be working in that space than to be sitting back like me and just talking about my story. So shout out to those amazing organizations and individuals that are out there doing the mahi.
Cool. Thank you very much. And we'll say ka kite anō to everybody out there.
Cool. See you later.
Okay. Bye.